Hello, my name is Sophie Pegg and today I'll be talking to you about the marginalisation of black girls within education. Underachievement in the UK. Educational policy in the UK is characterised by an obsession with academic achievement. The potential cures and causes of underachievement are constantly sought. Particular attention has been paid to boys. The underachievement of boys has been used to argue that we've entered a post-feminist era, despite the protestations of feminists who argue that the academic success of girls occurs in spite of the inequalities they face. In the UK, the underachievement of black pupils, from the Caribbean in particular, has also been a hot issue. These pupils are often subject to low teacher expectations and high exclusion rates. However, research has tended to focus on black boys and their lower achievement. Black girls are considered to have advantages in comparison. So today I'm asking, what about black girls? So, what about black girls? Monique W. Morris has asked this very question. Here are a few words from her TED Talk.
We're living through a crisis in which black girls are being disproportionately pushed away from schools, not because of an imminent threat they pose to the safety of a school, but because they're often experiencing schools as locations for punishment and marginalization. That's something that I hear from black girls around the country.
I want to understand this marginalization in the context of UK schools. Explorations of gender and education tend to focus on the experiences of white middle-class women, which may not correlate with the experiences of black women. Furthermore, there is often a conflation of black people and black males that happens in educational discourse. The view of black girls as successful compared to failing black boys has contributed to the invisibility of these girls. There is a lack of research that examines how race and gender uniquely inform black girls' experiences of education. In the current neoliberal climate, academic achievement is the golden standard for success. If you aren't failing, your experiences do not warrant investigation. Today, I argue that black girls have unique experiences in the education system and face unique risks based on the intersection of their race and gender. The unique position of black girls in education. A groundbreaking study by the Georgetown Law Center on Poverty and Inequality in 2017 began to scratch the surface on the experience of black girls in education. After interviewing over 300 teachers, it was discovered that in relation to white girls of the same age, participants perceived black girls to need less nurturing, less comfort, and less support. Ultimately, black girls were viewed as more adult than their white peers at almost all stages of childhood, which is horrifying. According to this study, the adultification of black girls and their consequent perception as less innocent may contribute to their harsher punishment and fewer mentorship and leadership opportunities. Black girls are being marginalised within education. Other research has demonstrated that the marginalisation of black girls has had a detrimental impact on their sense of self-efficacy and identity. In education, black girls are often expected to privilege either their race or gender identities. When racial identity and black womanhood are privileged, it often comes at the expense of academic success. Schools exemplify a white middle-class femininity that marginalises black women. To resist, some black girls will assert themselves by becoming louder and more dominant in the classroom, which ultimately leads to their negative labelling by teachers and peers. In contrast, black girls can conform to a version of white womanhood by concealing their blackness and becoming silent in the classroom. This often coincides with achievement. Research by Turner and Werner Wilson has shown that navigating a climate with so many stresses has negative impacts on not only school performance but mental health, with many black girls experiencing bullying and depression. We are denying black girls the opportunity to embrace their multiplicities of self and transmitting the message that you must be a passive white woman to navigate mainstream culture and experience academic success. Socialist critical with an intersectional approach. I believe a socialist critical approach can help respond to this inequality because it seeks to spotlight and dismantle oppressive forces through action. I'm concerned about the lack of recognition black girls receive in a male-dominated society where racism is deeply entrenched. My approach also considers intersectionality, which has origins in the work of Kimberly Crenshaw. We do not fit into neat categories of identity. Instead, these categories interrelate and build on each other, shaping our experiences. The social critical approach is transformative, and an intersectional approach corresponds with this by going beyond conventional analysis and analysing social problems more fully, which can shape future interventions more effectively. Intersectionality also has a core activist component with the aim of resisting and challenging the status quo. Mainstream liberal discourse positions identity categories like race, class, and gender as vessels of bias or domination, implying that we should empty these categories of social significance. I disagree and believe we should acknowledge differences and the way they intersect. The experience of Black girls are frequently the product of intersection patterns of racism and sexism. However, these experiences tend not to be represented within the discourses of either feminism or anti-racism, which fails to capture the experience of Black girls wholly. So how do we solve this inequality? I believe this inequality can be challenged and overcome by addressing 4 key areas in education, with research providing a solid foundation for practice. Research to highlight and legitimize discussion. Whilst researching this issue, I was surprised by how little scholarship has considered the marginalisation of Black girls specifically within a UK context. Many of the studies I cited earlier were conducted in America. While these shed light on the unique experiences of Black girls, I believe more research needs to be done in a UK context, where Black girls may face specific cultural biases. One UK study into Black Caribbean underachievement in England did consider gender, but only briefly. What's more, the achievement of Black girls was only contrasted against Black boys. Researchers needed to compare the experiences of Black girls against other girls, rather than just homogenising their experiences as exemplars relative to Black boys. Qualitative studies to capture the experiences of young Black girls are also essential, looking at experience beyond achievement to inform educational policy and transform discussions. We should be asking, what are the emotional costs of racism and of sexualized racialization for young Black girls in schools? How does this affect the way practitioners interact with Black girls? More affirmative initiatives attempt to increase Black women's representations in science and maths fields seldom consider factors related to gender and race that may influence Black women's patterns of interest in the development of educational aspirations. More research is definitely needed to understand how education shapes the lives of Black girls. This issue also deserves attention from both Black and white scholars. Some Black scholars may have a unique insight into the marginalisation of Black girls. However, one cannot assume that because they are Black, they have experienced such marginalisation. Thorough critical scholarship is needed to understand the multiple identities and standpoints of Black girls that can challenge neoliberal ideology. Overall, Black girls should no longer suffer from scholarly disinterest. Research is the foundation for future action and intervention within education. Teaching practice to eradicate discriminatory practice. The colourblind approach to teaching advocated by neoliberalism is damaging. Teachers need quality training to meet the specific needs of Black girls. Deep-rooted in race and gender inequalities mean it is not a level playing field for Black girls. As this quote demonstrates, teachers need to pay attention to the needs of the Black girls they educate. Training is essential for teachers at PGCE stage. It must cover the barriers facing ethnic minorities with specific mention of the needs of Black girls. Training could deconstruct the conscious or unconscious biases that teachers have of Black girls. Teacher education programs also need to afford more attention to Black voices by providing opportunity for teacher candidates to explore and apply in practice their understandings of critical race and Black feminist pedagogies, reflecting the interests of the Black girls they will teach in future. Who should teach? Initially, I was tempted to suggest the increased presence of Black women in the teaching profession. Although I do strongly believe in the diversification of the teaching force to reflect a multicultural society, it would be misguided to assume that Black female teachers want to be role models. Furthermore, a study by Mayer suggests that Black students often do not see Black teachers as role models anyway. Instead, Black teachers in this study felt that students would benefit more from quality teachers who cared. Thus, continual race and diversity training as part of professional development for all teachers is crucial. This encourages regular critique of the factors that may restrict the learning of Black girls and keep Black girls at the centre of school policy development. Black girls will also benefit most from good quality teachers from diverse ethnic backgrounds who are committed to professional development and aware of the potential biases against Black girls in terms of femininity and adultification. The teaching force have a collective responsibility to consciously adapt their teaching practice to support these pupils. School-based interventions are essential to validate the experiences of Black girls and empower them in a system that actively supports rather than neglects their needs. Acknowledging and discussing differences rather than assuming that individual hard work can overcome all is paramount. A social democratic position would deliberately allocate Black girls' school leadership roles in the name of equal opportunity. However, I believe this would be a surface allocation of respect. It does little to alleviate the underconfidence that Black girls may experience in school settings. Instead, I propose greater pastoral support for Black girls in primary and secondary schools to empower them. A core component of radical feminism is putting girls and women at the centre of concern. Greater pastoral support for Black girls would achieve this, ultimately validating their concerns. This could also include working with educational psychologists specialising in Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups and their unique mental health needs. Mentorship opportunities are essential for school community building, and I believe that mentorship schemes with adults would be effective here. Having an adult mentor can be an important source of emotional support for girls facing stressors. Mentors can offer stability, modelling and support, and can offset other negative relationships by building confidence, self-esteem and self-actualisation skills in mentees. They can also teach leadership and social engagement skills, providing a safe space for Black girls to overcome challenges. Furthermore, mentorship would increase staff awareness of the unique issues Black girls face at institutional and individual levels. Socialist critical theorists scrutinise curriculums, believing that they promote a homogenised form of knowledge and reinforce uneven power relations. Here I argue against a cultural conservative approach. We cannot afford to assume that male white voices are the norm. Dead white men like Shakespeare have dominated the curriculum. It is crucial to include Black voices, and more crucially, Black female voices. What do we teach? Black women must be represented in the curriculum and not as a token gesture. Texts written by Black women should be analysed so that the her stories of Black women can be learnt. Storytelling and counter-stories are powerful tools used by socialist critics to disrupt homogenous knowledge. The Educational Institute of Scotland, in a report dedicated to anti-racist education, relayed how members had used the film Hidden Figures to explore the little-known role of Black women in the NASA mission. How do we teach? Dialogic critical education is key here to enhance consciousness through a critical analysis of society. Students should discuss and critique existing texts, analysing the overrepresentation of white male and female standpoints. For example, students could look at Shakespeare through a critical lens, observing how he was a conservative looking to bolster the divine rights of kings. Socialist critics believe school is for political participation. We should be able to question how society works. Ultimately, Black girls should see themselves reflected and respected in the curriculum and should be given the tools to understand how the system oppresses them. A diverse curriculum, viewed through a critical lens, can fight against the racist and sexist tides of standardization and conformity endemic in education. Conclusion. Discussions of achievement in the UK have particularly focused on boys and Black boys. However, research has shown in education that Black girls are often perceived as more adult and are often required to privilege either their race or gender. The inequalities faced by Black girls are best addressed by the socialist critical position and an intersectional approach. Using an intersectional approach has not paralysed progressive work. Rather, it has enabled a thorough examination of a complex educational inequality. The intersection of race and gender explored here highlights the need to account for multiple grounds of identity when considering how the social world is constructed. Therefore, I suggest that research is vital for the development of appropriate intervention techniques that best meet the unique needs of Black girls. Intervention includes altered teaching practice, school-based interventions, and transformed curriculum and pedagogy. I believe my proposed solutions are transformative, taking direct action to challenge and disrupt the features of education that oppress and disempower Black girls. I would like to end with some final words from Monique W. Morris.
seem like a tall order in a world so deeply entrenched in the politics of fear to radically imagine schools as locations where girls can heal and thrive, but we have to be bold enough to set this as our intention. If we commit to this notion of education as freedom work, we can shift educational conditions so that no girl, even the most vulnerable among us, will get pushed out of school. And that's a win for all of us.
Thank you for listening. Page 1 of references. Page 2 of references.